Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Huttons Valley Permaculture. Just behind me here is what I'm calling compost chaos. It's gotten out of control. In today's video, we're going to do the great reset and get it all sorted. So just to give you a little bit of background on how all of this got so out of control, back in March, I had to put the remains of a cow into this compost bay. And I sort of filled it all up, and of course I didn't want to get in there and turn it. So this has been sitting for 6 months. And the other day I got in here because I wanted to get some of that compost out. And I found that all the bits at the side hadn't decomposed, they'd dried out. There was some good stuff in the middle that I could use, but a lot of it really needs to go through a composting system again. And the bay next to this one, I just put in a whole pile of compost and didn't turn it. Usually I would turn the piles a couple of times, but because the bay next to it was occupied, I didn't really have anywhere easily to dump this into. So I kind of just set and forget with that one as well. And what's happened here as well, there's, some decent compost in the middle, but as you can see, there's lots that hasn't decomposed. And when I did dig through this the other day, I found there was lots of grasses that look like they would just start to grow if I gave them a chance. So I'm thinking that this could be good to put through the compost system one more time. I have recently filled this compost bay, so that could do with a bit of a turn. And that is a duck that had its head removed by a fox, and I found it out in the paddock. So that will be fantastic to get one of our composts started. And finally, this compost bay, I kind of opened it up to see if there was any usable compost. And I'm suspecting that in the middle somewhere there might be. But it does look like it dried out, and again I failed to turn it. I did the set and forget method, and I think because winter was a bit drier than we'd normally have, it didn't stay as moist and dried out. So that's been a problem with this bay as well. My plan today to do the big reset is to first of all turn this compost bay and see how it's going, and see whether we need to just restart this one as well. But with the other 3 bays, I'm going to remove the material, take out the dry stuff that I can put through the compost again, and remove any of the good compost so that I can add it to my gardens that I'm preparing for summer. So it's going to take a bit of reshuffling, but in preparation for that, I've grabbed some fresh ingredients to try and fire up my new composts with a bit of extra nitrogen. In preparation for our compost rebuild, I weeded the pavers. I always find that they're a fantastic source of compost material. So I tidied them up just a little bit, and I've been out to the pastures where I often wander around picking up bucket loads of poo. But the manure is a really good way to get the compost firing again. And finally, I gathered a big pile of grass. I do also have other random piles of weeding and grass clippings and blackberries that have died off. So I'm just going to get all of this material tidied up and into these bins. Now I was going to start with turning this pile, but I think it makes more sense if we attack this one first. I'll clear out all the dry materials that I want to put through my compost system again, and collect all the compost that it's going to head to the garden. So we'll get started on this one instead, and then once that's empty, I'll be able to just flip that into that bay, and that will be just a once only rather than flipping it out here and then back into there. We've got that top dry layer off, so let's have a dig in here. There might be a few bones that we can move out. but it looks pretty moist. That is a cow skull. I'm just going to move out of here because I no longer want it in this compost. Okay, this large bony bit I will put into my compost up in the top paddock where I often put animal remains. I don't usually put them in this compost system just because then I can't turn it and it gets out of control. But all of that looks pretty good, so I'll be separating out that great compost and heading it off to the garden. So that's our compost. It's fairly rough, but still pretty lovely. I can always separate out those bits, but if I'm just topping my garden off with it, I don't mind if there's random sticks. If they're really big, well, I'll put them through the compost again or into the rest of the garden. But that's all looking pretty good. Trying to get the bits of plastic out of there. Okay, 1 cart of compost to go to the garden from here. This is all the materials that's going to go through the compost again. And I did discover there's plenty of cows still to decompose. There was lots of worms in here going to work on it. So I'll be adding this bin to that bay, and then, you know, in 4 or 5 days time, I'll flip it all again into this one, and that compost should be reset then. Tidy that up. Get all of that in there, and I'll be using that at the front of this bay. I just use these little Oki straps to hold it all on. Just got to be careful they don't shoot off at you, but it seems to do the trick pretty well. You can see the material in this bay is fairly freshly into the compost. It hasn't really started to rot down, but we'll get it all out of there and flip it into that one now. I'll add this dark into my new compost when I build it and not add it to this one. I've got lots of feathers from my duck harvest on the top there, so that'll be good flipped into this new bay. Always a great workout doing compost. Oh, you can feel it getting warmer as I get into the middle. And little decomposers at work there. I did add in some of the remains from the duck here too, but it doesn't last too long with all these little creatures around. And there's some worms at the top there, and it's starting to feel warm in the middle there. While I'm flipping it all, I do check that there's plenty of moisture in the pile, and I'm happy to add a little bit more if it seems a bit dry, but the middle of this pile seems good. And this extra material that I'm going to add in is also quite damp, so I think I'm happy with the moisture content. Gets a bit heavy. You can tell that this should have been flipped a while ago. There is a bit of warmth here, but not as much as if I'd flipped it a couple of weeks ago, sort of a week after I'd built it. But that's just what happens occasionally. Hopefully, with this reset, I'll be more on to tending to my composts. Now I'll just add some of this back in again. I'll put the freshest stuff in the new compost. Alright, all of that can go into the new compost now. And I'll just finish adding this lot into there. You can see this edge of the compost didn't get the moisture that the rest got, so it's good to get that moved into the centre of the new compost bay, and all that moisture should spread out fairly evenly. Getting there. Good core strength work actually. Oop. Whew. All we need to do now is get a bit of cardboard, I think, and cover that over. The beds I'm going to use this compost on aren't quite ready for it yet, so I'm just going to put it here until we're ready for it. With this compost bay all filled now, I'm going to empty this one, and the plan is to build my new compost in that bay that we've just removed everything out of. It just means that I can flip this compost into that side, and when that one's ready to flip, I can just flip it into the one next to it. So that just kind of makes sense. Something's still decomposing. I might have put a chicken in here. There's lots of feathers in here that haven't really decomposed well. Maybe it was the remains of a duck harvest. I can't remember. It's another bin emptied. We'll get that all into the new compost over there. Okay, we're up to clearing this compost. I'll start just by moving some of this top layer into our other bin. And then I'll start to layer in the fresh ingredients like our grass. And I'll grab some of our other compost and start putting that in there. Now, I'm not sure if I've got enough fresh ingredients to really get this compost taking off, but we'll see how we go. Okay, time for a bit of manure and a bit more of our old compost. Now, I will be watering this one down actually as I go. Now, a bit of manure. Righty, I'll get some more water onto that. I'm going to put my dead duck in the middle of the compost now. So it's smack bang in the middle. I am not really confident that this pile has enough new material in it to heat it up, so I'll only turn it if it does heat up, and if it does heat up, I'll have to deal with the duck in the middle of it then. But I anticipate that it won't heat up because I'm just not adding enough stuff. There's too much sort of already semi-decomposed stuff that's not really going to get hot in here. So I won't bother turning it. I'll just let it be a static pile if it doesn't heat up. So I've just got to keep going with adding in all this material and tidy up. The compost pile is nearly there. I should be able to tidy up all of that area and get that in. And this compost here, it actually looks fairly reasonable. I'm happy with putting what's left here onto my garden. So I'm just going to leave that here for the moment and just grab it when I've got my gardens ready. So just a little bit more to do to get these composts reset. These fairy wrens just love it when I've disturbed things. And there's plenty of insects and little bugs around. Alright, can't stand here watching birds all day. I better get on with it. Okay, we've got everything back in our compost bins. 4 bins into 2, which feels much less chaotic. I'm just topping both of them with a layer of cardboard to keep the moisture in a bit. And it can keep the heat in a bit too if these do happen to heat up at all. And I'll just pop something on top to hold that down. That's just a bag of compost I need to sort through, and a bag of over sand, which comes in handy sometimes. While my chicken netting certainly needs sorting out, maybe I'll pop that on the list for tomorrow, my compost area feels a heap better. I've still got to get this compost out to the garden, but that will clear that bin. And we've got these 2 full bins. I'm not sure whether either of them will heat up, definitely not that one. This one might, because we've put some more nitrogen materials in there, but probably not quite enough. But I'll get the thermometer in there and we'll keep an eye on it. And we've got this bin here that we can flip that one into should we need to. Well, it feels like it's a big job done, but I'm really pleased to finally get on top of it. And I'll look forward to building some more compost now that everything's under control. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.